Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, geeks and nerds and ambassadors everywhere, and welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing and another installment of Ambassadorial R&D. And hope y'all are having a great Saturday. Hope y'all are having a really good weekend. Wrapping up another long week at work for myself, and glad to be back with you all tonight for another great discussion, another good stream. And tonight, of course, we'll be continuing our reaction and discussion of the book of Boba Fett. And as always, if this is your first visit to the Ambassadorial Wing, make sure that you smash that like button, share this out with all your friends who are fans of the Star Wars universe, both current and previously. And if you like if you like what's coming down the line here on the Ambassador Wing, make sure you tell all your friends about what's going on over here. That tonight, here on the Ambassador Wing, the party is here. And a shout out to the chat, everybody that's lurking, everybody that's chatting it up. I love food, and Josh of Galactic Republic Gaming, gentlemen, good evening. And to let you all know, as always, I will be dropping the link for the stream in the chat here in just a few minutes. But I just want to take a minute or two to say hello to everybody and give everybody a chance to get in here. And then I will open up the panel and we'll talk Book of Boba Fett. And I have to say, just before I do, like I said, before I drop the link, just to give my initial thoughts, this is the way. to not put too fine a point on it. I honestly really did enjoy this episode of Book of Boba Fett, and we'll get into exactly why I did enjoy this and why I think this is one of the stronger episodes of this season of Book of Boba Fett. And we'll also discuss a little bit of the narrative structure of Book of Boba Fett and what I think this particular episode has in store for not just Book of Boba Fett, but for obviously the season 3 of The Mandalorian itself, and potentially for the larger narrative of Star Wars going forward. So, but that being said, we don't stand on a lot of ceremony here. I don't give you all a 15-minute intro. I say my piece and then we get right into things. So let me drop the link in the chat for anybody that wants to join me this evening. And we will get things going. So bear with me for just one moment, gentlemen and ladies, if there are any ladies out there. And also to the chat, another familiar face, a good friend of the channel, a fellow ambassador, Mr. Zach Leary. Zach, good to see you, bud, and appreciate you popping by. So, anyway, there is the link for anybody that wants to join me for the discussion tonight, for however long that you can or cannot stay. And you can share your thoughts on Book of Boba Fett, what you liked, what you didn't like, and everything across the board. So, and another familiar face, another good friend of the channel, Marcus Cruz. Marcus, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, my friend. And as always, Marcus, good to see it. Episode 6 and 7 is going to be good. I have a feeling it's going to be banger. So, but give a warm welcome to another ambassador. You know him, you love him. He is the head of Galactic Republic Gaming, Josh, and of course, my good friend, you know him, you love him. He's opinionated, but we love him. Mr. Ambassador Zach Leary. Gentlemen, good evening.
We're all wearing glasses today.
Good to see you, fellas.
Yeah. I love the episode. I'm going to say I did not expect... I did expect Din to be in the last few episodes, but I didn't expect the full episode dedicated to just him.
Yeah, and I was a little bit surprised at that as well, but I was running this through my brain ever since Wednesday when I sat down and watched the episode, and I was like, okay, I see what they're doing here, and I can't say I disapprove of it. Because here's the thing: we have not seen Din since the end of season 2 of Mandalorian. Obviously, we don't know what he's been up to. We don't know where he's been. We don't know what he's been doing. And this episode gets us up to speed. And we'll do a deep dive into what we liked about the episode, what we potentially may not have liked, and what, like I said, what this means for the last 2 episodes, and I think also for potentially for season 3 of Mandalorian. So, gentlemen, the floor is open. Who wants to go first?
Zach, you can go first.
Well, first of all, guys, this is an episode of The Mandalorian. not really a Boba Fett episode. It's kind of odd that we have this Mandalorian episode in the middle of the Boba Fett show.
Yeah.
It was a good episode, the best one yet. But I mean, doing your best episode and having this badass Mandalorian episode kind of makes me miss Mandalorian rather than be excited about Boba Fett.
And Zach, you would be surprised how many times I have heard that same sentiment from a lot of people that I listen to, many of them friends of mine who have said the same thing. And I can't say I disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was working through, I just recently rewatched the episode this afternoon. Some threads got pulled a little bit tighter, and I was able to get a better handle on what exactly they've been doing. Now, I want to posit a theory to you, gentlemen, and see what you all think. Point 1. Robert Rodriguez is obviously an executive producer / director for this series, who is a contemporary, a friend of his, that does things similarly in terms of storytelling, in terms of non-linear storytelling.
Yeah.
A director that both you and I both love, Zach, and that is, of course, Quentin Tarantino. And what does Tarantino have a penchant for doing? Stopping his narrative practically dead in its tracks and going off on a side story that still has connection to the main story itself, but focuses more so on a character that either we have never met or that we have not seen in a while. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
I don't know.
What is your theory?
Well, but it's not essentially a theory. I think it's more so a narrative device. I think what we're getting here is some influence from Tarantino, in terms of how they've structured this series. Because if you look at the series overall, it's very non-linear. There's a lot of time jumps, and in this particular instance, they have quite literally, as I said, put a detour in the main path of the story, but then wove it back in at the very end, where Finnick is there at the mechanic shop and says, "We need some muscle," and he's like, "Time to my house."
I mean that tying it together with a 10-second line, right, or sequence. But I was trying to figure out what joke I was going to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a couple of them. Here's one I didn't use. I put out a tweet about this, but here's my unused one.
Okay.
The first episode of the new Halo show was great.
Yes, and obviously we do get a wink and a nod from the Halo universe. I was actually watching. I watched a few other channels, their reviews and their discussions on this, and one channel made reference to a book series called Ringworld that does take place on a structure very similar to what we see at the beginning of this episode of Book of Boba Fett. Mm-hmm. And I really like the design. I can't lie, and it's honestly something new yet somewhat familiar for those of us that are fans of sci-fi, for those of us that are fans of gaming. But it's something new to the Star Wars universe, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we get a lot.
I don't think that they should have done it.
You know,
while it looks badass, It's
Mhm.
like it would be like me doing that. Would be just I would be laughing at myself if for one of my stories I just said, "Yeah, I like the Halo ring. Let me just take that and use it." It's a smaller version, but
Mhm.
there are things that they should have done aesthetically to make it look different. Put some big poles sticking out from it, or do something. Make it look like a
Yeah.
throwing star instead of a ring.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
You know
and I
what?
get I Go ahead, Josh.
I was kind of reminded actually of, like, it's kind of reminiscent of all the worlds with like the big shipyards around them and the
Oh, you're talking like the big like the okay,
yeah, and then the planet.
the shipyards at Kuwait or the shipyards at Fondor, places like that in the Star Wars universe. Is
Uh-huh.
that what you're mentioning, Josh?
Yeah. And then the one
Yeah.
planet where they were at the beginning of that story arc with in the Clone Wars where they first explain the chips.
Okay. Yeah. I get what you're talking about. And yeah, I can see that too. So um and Zach, I get your point too. As I said, I think this is a bit of a wink and a nod to those universes, and also um it's it's something different for the Star Wars universe. So,
Mm-hmm.
and let me see what we got going on here in the private chat. 1 second. I wanted the force in
One
my
thing I
story.
will say, the shape of the little tarp that was over the N1 was a bit misleading to me at first. Because
Uh
I
huh.
just watched back through the episode a few minutes before the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Um and the shape of the little tarp kind of reminded me not of an N1, but like one of those droid bombers like General Grievous used to fly.
Oh, General Grievous' fighter. Yeah, and I thought that myself. So, um,
Oh yeah, that thing was badass.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was. So, um, and I'll bring up my Ace's comment here. Well, I thought Halo. I also thought it might have been a minor homage to the space station from 2001: Space Odyssey.
Well,
Ace,
listen, I'm
that's
I'm bitching here a little bit. I'm kind of joking around. It's a good
no, you're too.
episode, guys.
No,
Yeah.
no, no,
But
Zach, dude, you're good. You're fine.
no, I
No
no, I
worries.
know, no,
So,
I know. But
so
overall, pretty fucking entertaining. I mean, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with
it
you.
was.
Um,
Um,
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, the other, okay, I have to admit, being both the son-in-law and the grandson of a mechanic, I loved the montage of them rebuilding that and modifying that N1 Starfighter. I
Yeah,
really
I
did.
like that.
I that made my little mechanical geek heart go thump thump thump
Yeah.
in all the best ways.
And then Din's comment about like that's a lot of engine for a small fighter, and as it's making like a hot rod engine sound.
Yeah, if you notice, there were a couple little audio cues as well, particularly when the engine fails. It's had that same wind down, like with the wind down sound when the hyperdrive on the Millennium Falcon failed in Empire, and
Mm-hmm.
also that sound is also used in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when the airplane's engines are starting to die. They use that same um, sound effect there as well. So, uh, but yeah, honestly, I said this to the missus and everything because she was watching the episode with me. I was like, if they do like a Hot Wheel version of Din's new ship, I want it because there's I don't know if they'll do a bigger version or if they'll even do a Lego model of it. If they do a Lego model, I'm getting that sucker because I
Mm-hmm.
love the design of that ship. I mean,
The same.
again, it's
Now,
calling back. Go ahead, Josh.
now I wonder if they're gonna uh take the N1, if they're gonna give it a new paint job or if they're gonna leave it silver.
I think they'll leave it silver because if you look at the Razor Crest, it was all silver. So I think they'll keep that design aesthetic. honestly, I think it looks cooler that way, and it kind of fits with Din's, with the Mandalorian's personality and everything somewhat. Because honestly, it's simplistic, but it's beautiful, and it's just absolutely, seeing that thing in action. I can't wait to see it in a dogfight or something. That for me is going to be really. That's going to be really well. As Din said when she landed, she's like, "Well, how did when the mechanic Pelly says how'd she do?" He's like, "Wizard," and I'm like,
Oh,
"Yes,
that was kind of a dumb line.
I liked it."
Yeah. What I did like about that whole sequence is, well, first off, the obvious callback to the pod
The
race
fa-
from the Phantom Menace.
From Phantom Menace, yeah.
And then also as it was turning on, I was heavily reminded of, now this is pod racing.
Am I the only guy that thought that Mando was going to get his ass whooped by that big Vizsla dude?
And actually, he came pretty damn close, and we can actually transition from there. We can come back to the part about the ship, but yeah, obviously the other part of this episode is him returning to the armor and Paz Vizsla. And fun fact for those of you that may not know this, now I don't know how much he was in that particular sequence, but Jon Favreau actually played Paz Vizsla in season 1 of The Mandalorian, and he also played Paz in this episode as well. They just did some audio alteration to his voice, so it didn't sound exactly like him.
Oh, is he just a voiceover?
No, I think he might have.
Favreau's
He might have
going
been.
in the suit.
No offense to him, we love him,
Mhm.
but he doesn't look like the type of guy who could do that fight sequence.
Well, they may have had a stunt double or a fight double in there for him, but for the non-fighting parts, they may have had him in the suit potentially. Because Jon Favreau seems like the type of guy he would at least want to be in the suit, even if he's not fighting. So, and I imagine they probably did have a stunt double for Din as well for Pedro Pascal.
But
so.
did you? I felt he was really in danger of losing the
Yeah.
Darksaber.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, he was.
And-
Speaking of the Darksaber, I think it's kind of realistic how like he was struggling to use it and how he
Yes.
injured himself at the beginning.
Yeah,
That's how
I
any
have to-
starter swordsman would be. I would imagine even pre Vizsla, when he was first starting to use it, had that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of.
Well, most definitely.
Well, let me throw this at you, Ambassador.
Go ahead, bud.
Don't the Jedi alter their physical abilities when they're fighting, so that way a little petite girl like Ahsoka could lift a lightsaber, right? Because I know Yoda does to counteract his age. Yeah.
Mhm.
They use the Force to augment their abilities, not so much their strength yet, though they can do so. But the thing with a lightsaber or the dark saber itself is, and even if you look at, and I know it's very brief, but even if you look at when Han Solo uses Luke's lightsaber in Empire, he can ignite it, and he uses it to make the incision in the Tauntaun's stomach, but he doesn't do much else with it. But you notice there is a bit of exertion there for him because he's not accustomed to using something like this. This is not like, okay, let me put it to you this way. If you look at the inner schematics of just about any lightsaber, and there you can find them online, you can find them in books, the whole shoot match. There's a lot of inner workings, and those things give off a lot of power because the intensity of the blade itself is very powerful to do what it does to cut through practically anything, which you see the Darksaber itself do. So seeing Din have difficulty using the Darksaber, and even if you look at the fight with Moff Gideon, even Gideon had some trouble with the Darksaber himself, even though he had it longer. And I have a sneaking suspicion that he may have gotten some tips from maybe an Inquisitor or something like that anything on how to use a saber? Because I imagine the Inquisitors
I would agree with that.
might have been there might have been one or two that he may have met along the way, and they may have given him some tips. Being he was on very high ranking moth, and
Hmm.
something tells me the guy had training in swordsmanship, not specifically lightsaber swordsmanship, but just basic swordsmanship, and he applied that to using the dark saber as well.
Yeah.
So to see Din have difficulty and to see him get his butt kicked by the armorer who has nothing more than her tongs and her smithing hammer beat him is not surprising. Now, there is something I do want. There's something else I did want to address with this, with the line that one of the lines at the end where he says, "I have a little friend to go meet." I don't think we're going to be seeing Luke or Grogu in the next episode. They're going to be switching back over to the main focus. They're going to have to.
Uh-huh.
But my theory, and this may not pan out whatsoever, I have a feeling we'll probably get that sequence in a flashback in season 3.
Most definitely.
That's my theory on that, and everything is they'll obviously switch back over to Boba's story. They'll have Din there, and so on, and then probably season 3 at some point we'll get a flashback sequence of Din going to see Grogu and potentially even Luke.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's
I
just a
feel like
question of. Go ahead,
I
Josh.
feel like with the way this episode went, they kind of have to do that. That might even be how, like, that might be like a halfway into season 3 thing.
Maybe because we don't know. And we also got an idea of where season 3 is going, and we all pretty much had a good idea, but this pretty much cements it that Din is going to rejoin Bo-Katan and her bunch, and probably season 3 is going to deal with the retaking of Mandalore. And that also brings up another good point. When the armorer is retelling the fall of Mandalore at the hands of the Empire, let me ask you: did anyone else get some Terminator vibes from that particular sequence, or was it just
Actually,
me?
I watched immediately after I watched the episode, I got a recommended video from Generation Tech, and he talked about that.
Did he? Okay, yeah, I know
Yeah.
Generation Tech. I have watched his stuff too. So
Good sequence. Yeah, really good.
Hmm.
And with Gideon at the helm of the attack is I'm pretty sure what they were explaining.
yeah.
And
Well, and go ahead, Josh.
Gideon himself even mentioned back in season, was it the end of season 1 or start of season
Mhm.
2 of The Mandalorian? When he mentioned the Night of 1,000 Tears, and
Mhm.
that he was in charge of it.
Well, here's the thing. The Empire had a big beef with the Mandalorians because here's the thing. The Mandalorians were a legitimate threat to Imperial rule, so they're obviously going to go after them. Look at it this way. It's kind of a reflection of real life history. When the Roman
Mhm.
Empire is spreading out and laying claim to everything, what's one military force in the world at that time that could put up a fight against them? The Spartans. If you want to parallel that with Star Wars, the Mandalorians are not directly, but sort of like Star Wars equivalent of Spartans. They're highly trained, highly disciplined. There's not a whole lot of them, but you don't need a whole lot of them for them to cause a lot of damage. So that's why
So
the Empire.
you're
Go
saying
ahead,
that
Zach.
the Empire basically Pearl Harbored them.
Well, Pearl Harbored them, and not only that, but did to Mandalore what the Roman Empire did to the Spartans as well,
Took them
because
out
they're
before they could become a threat.
precisely,
Mhm.
yeah.
Which
So,
technically, Mandalore in its prime would have already been a threat.
oh yeah, most definitely. Well, and considering that they were going back to their more warrior aspect, especially after the death of the one the Duchess Satine, in the Clone Wars animated series.
Mhm.
So with the Mandalorian resurgence as warriors rather than as pacifists, that is going to be that they most definitely been a threat to the Empire. So that's why the Empire did pretty much a scorched earth on Mandalore, and that's why there was only so few that survived. If you remember what the armor said, it was only because we were based on Concordia, which was a moon of Mandalore, that they were able to survive and escape, essentially.
Uh-huh. I'm surprised the Empire didn't launch some kind of secondary assault on Concordia, though, because they would have known that there was some kind of base on Concordia.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. They may have. The thing is, we don't know how extensive the Empire's purge was of Mandalore itself. They may have, but by the time they got around to attacking Concordia, that group may have already fled and headed for parts unknown. So, and Zach, I'll bring up your comment here that you put in here, and Zach, anything you put in there, you can put in the public chat too. So, um, here's the thing that you may not know. It's a little bit of deep lore for the Star Wars universe. The Republic had essentially demilitarized themselves. That's why the Republic didn't have a standing army at all. That's why when the clone army is created in the prequel timeline, um, it's such a shock for everyone because up until this time, for the most part, it was just independent worlds that had their own standing armies. The Republic itself had no military whatsoever. They had no military infrastructure, nothing. It had security forces and so on, but no active military itself. So,
Yeah.
and Ace, that's not a bad parallel either. I kind of thought of the Mandalorians being like the Saiyans from Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, you could make an argument for that or anything, most definitely. So, but here's the thing. I think Din is probably he's going to be forging his own path going forward,
Uh-huh.
and I don't think he's necessarily even going to try to attempt to atone or whatever. Because if you noticed or not, when the armor says to him, "This is the way," he did not reply back. And I think one of the really interesting things about this episode is Din is on his first steps to reinventing himself, much in the same way as Boba Fett is reinventing himself from a bounty hunter into something else. So the question is, what is Din going to, or the Mandalorian going to reinvent himself into? Is he going to try and become something more than he is? Is he going to be like? Is he going to fight Bo-Katan? I'll bring up I Love Food's comment here, real quick. I'm sure they'll explain it, and they're referring to the reunion between the Mandalorian and Grogu. But you don't have to kill your opponent for the Darksaber. I wonder why Bo-Katan didn't fight Din for it, or did she? Here's the thing: we don't know if she fought him for it, or if she was even in a condition in a position to fight him for it. It could be that they're so.
Well, let me throw this out there.
Sure. Exactly.
How would you feel about a Boba Fett and Fennec relationship?
I'd be okay with it. Everybody needs somebody. Honestly, I would be perfectly fine with it.
Aren't they actually around the same age too?
She's got to be younger than him.
Yeah, because here's the thing you got to remember, Josh. Even though Boba is an unaltered clone, he's been alive since the prequel era. Essentially, we meet Boba. I think when we meet him in Attack of the Clones, he's right around 9 or 10 years old. And Fennec, we don't have a specific age for her. I think when we meet her in season 1 of Bad Batch, I would put her age at approximately maybe in her late teens or early 20s.
That's it?
Maybe. I could be wrong. I don't know for sure. I haven't
I'd
done a whole
say
lot of...
maybe early to mid 20s.
Yeah, maybe. So, obviously there's an age gap between them, but I mean, there's such a thing as May December relationships, and and oftentimes they do work.
Well, dude, the
Mhm.
the actress is 58 years old.
Yeah, Ming-Na, yeah. And Tamora Morrison, he's...
She looks pretty good
Uh,
for her age. I mean, but
she does, yes.
I'm gonna go with her being. You mean you think she's 20 in the show?
No. When we meet her in Bad Batch, I think she's in her
Oh,
late
okay.
teens, early 20s. So put about 20, maybe 20 some odd years on top of that.
She looks great
And,
for 58 years old. I mean, I can't believe that.
well, she takes good care of herself.
It's almost
So,
60.
Momora's 61.
oh,
Yeah,
Tamora
I
Morrison.
think they would be a good fit, to be honest with you, in terms of their characters
Okay.
getting together.
I agree.
It would kind of give Boba
Mm-hmm.
Fett, this Boba Fett story, some emotional opportunities that are rooted in the present instead of the past.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
I do agree.
that opens the door to a lot of interesting stuff, I think.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing. They're both former bounty hunters. One's a master assassin. You can even make the argument that Boba is an assassin in his own right, just not as highly skilled as she is. They're both at transitional periods in their life. They're looking for some sort of stability, and they could find that stability in one another. And like I said, I don't have... When it comes to relationships in any type of fiction, in particular in the Star Wars universe, I don't have a problem with it. So, now the other thing I want to remark upon is who directed this episode. Bryce Dallas Howard. Ron Howard's little girl. Of course, she's not so little anymore. A lot of people have said this. And I'm just saying that because she's older, not in terms of her appearance.
Dude, I think she's a better director than her dad.
You know, I can't necessarily say I disagree with you, but at the same time, I love Ron Howard as a director. He's done good stuff in his career. So, but honestly,
she's a badass actress too, by the way.
She is.
You seen her the Yellowstone show?
I haven't, but of course I have seen her in the Jurassic World films, and I really enjoyed that. I've heard a lot of good stuff about Yellowstone. I've just never had opportunity to watch it, so it's not something that I am opposed to. It's just I haven't necessarily, like I said, had the time or the opportunity.
I eventually gave in when people wouldn't leave me alone about the fucking thing.
And you're kind of glad now that they didn't leave you alone about it.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, it's good.
So, the other thing, I've heard a lot of comments, and again, it's something I can't say I disagree with. If they decide to give her own movie or give her a Star Wars movie, I will not be opposed to it whatsoever. Because the 2 episodes that she directed for seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian, on top of this, I think honestly, from my perspective, she's earned my respect as a director. She does good work. I would love to see
what
her
else
actually
has she
branch.
Directed?
I honestly don't know. Aside from those 2 episodes of Mandalorian, I'm not entirely sure.
Which other one did she do beside this one?
She did an episode in season 1 where they of Mandalorian where they introduced Cara Dune, and then she did an episode in season 2 of Mandalorian, but I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But and yes, Ace Bryce knows her. Well, now there is one other role that one other acting role that she had that I do recall. It was earlier on in her career. It was when she was first starting out. It was in a. It was unfortunately at the time. It was in a M. Night Shyamalan film, Lady in the Water, where she played the Lady in the Water. The
Did you
Narf,
do
I think.
a spotlight on M. Night?
I didn't.
Okay.
So let me see if I can. Bryce, there she is. Bryce Dallas Howard. Okay, let's see if I can get to her IMDb because I'm honestly you've piqued my interest. Okay, here we go. IMDb. Man, she's got that bright red hair just like her dad. Although dad's getting kind of bald. So, all right, hang on here. Let me get to her filmography. Holy crap, she was born in 1981. She's as old as my wife? Holy crap. My wife was born my wife was born in August of 81. Holy cow. Okay, I didn't see that. Let's see. All right, hang on here. All right. Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can get down to her directing credits. Good grief, she's done a lot. Just a note. Oh, that's right. She did play Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3. I forgot about that. Okay, here we go. Director. All right. Hang on. 1 second. Okay. Okay. Mandalorian season 1 and season 2, chapters 4 and 11, Sanctuary and the Heiress. She did something it was a documentary called Dads. She did a short called Soulmates. She did a TV miniseries documentary shorts called Vanity Fair Decades. Let's see. When you found me, that was another short, and she did a lot of shorts before she did this. She's actually be working on the TV series, which I'm kind of interested to see because it is something from my childhood as a kid of the 80s. Fly the Navigator, which is in pre-production. That's her directing credits. Anyway. Oh, and I forgot she was also Kate Connor in Terminator Salvation. So.
Well, this is her biggest accomplishment, I would say, then as a director. This episode, it fits together really well. I mean, but again, it feels like the first episode of Mando season 3. I mean, it kind of perfectly sets him up in this episode. So, what do you think he's going to do when he gets to Boba Fett's palace?
Well, essentially, he's going to be operating as muscle. That's what they brought him in for. And Fennec was even like, the pay's good, and he's like, Boba Fett, and she's like, yeah, and he's like, he tosses the bag to her and says, tell him it's on the house.
So basically, you think he's going to be around for this conflict, and then he's going to scram?
Potentially, more than likely, yeah, because like I said, season 3 is going to focus on this is my theory, and this is, I think, a theory a lot of people have. Season 3 is going to focus on Bo-Katan's campaign to retake Mandalore. And
that would be badass.
That's what a lot of people are saying. You're not alone on that one, Zach. So, but
Maul is dead, right? Darth Maul is dead.
Yeah. Maul was killed in one of the latter seasons
era, right?
It was because it takes place. Yeah, because it takes place in Rebels, which is, I think, 5 or so years out from A New Hope, essentially. It's 5 to 10 years out from A New Hope.
If they wanted to, they could straight up go back and just forget that happened. Right?
Oh, Rebels.
They kind of teased us with them in Solo, and it's like, what the hell? You know, they teased us with them, and it looks like we're never going to see that happen. Huh?
Yes.
Solo takes place before Rebels, though.
Yeah.
That's beside the point.
So, but
What
yeah.
I'm
By
saying
this
is they
point,
teased us with them, and we have no
yeah.
follow up.
Well, we do no. What Josh is saying, Zach, in terms of the timeline, Solo takes place before the events of Rebels. Solo takes place in between
Revenge of
Clone
the Sith.
Wars and Rebels, if I understand it correctly, if I'm understanding the timeline correctly. I don't have a timeline in front of me, but I'm running on memory here.
Solo
So,
takes place right when the Empire is first transitioning into the Stormtrooper Corps and stuff.
right. So, um, but yeah, but Maul at this point, by this point in the story, he is very much dead. So, uh, there's even rumors that the Pikes are working with the remnants of the Crimson Dawn because here's the thing: even though Maul is dead, and the one guy,
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany played, is dead.
Yeah.
They're saying that Kira, Amelia Clark's character, is still very much
Yeah.
alive,
I've
and
heard
she could.
some stuff about her. They would have to straight up recast her.
Not
She would be how old?
necessarily.
She would be,
Well,
60. I mean, how old would she be at this point?
well, it's called good prosthetic makeup, and they can do it. So,
But here's the
okay.
deal: can they afford her?
Amelia Clark. Well, they
She's
got
pretty
the
fucking
Marvel's.
expensive.
Marvel got her for Secret Invasion. So I would say probably that they can't afford her. So, and
So she's the top dog. You think she's still hanging out with the Crimson Dawn?
Possibly. There's nothing for
I
sure.
wouldn't doubt it.
So,
well, are they doing? Sorry to derail you a little bit. Are they doing a Solo 2, or is that done? Is that over?
There have been rumors that they might be looking at a Solo 2, but there's been nothing officially confirmed. That's the thing. There's been nothing officially confirmed. So, and Lewis Cox, he kind of fills in the gap here for us. And Lewis, thank you, bud. Appreciate it. Solo happens between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Well, there's a lot that happens in between there, Lewis, but I do get what you're saying. And shout to the chat, Superior Collectibles. Good to see you, bud. Appreciate you popping in. So, but yeah, honestly, I think they're obviously building towards a major conflict, and okay, that's fine, Zach. Anything? I'll let you have a chance to give your final thoughts before you have to run off. So,
Cool.
just give me a heads up as to when, and I'll let you do your thing. They're obviously building towards a major conflict with Book of Boba Fett, with the Mandalorian. I would imagine Ahsoka is going to fill in that conflict a little bit further, and with anything else that they've got coming up, live action, I imagine maybe just a little bit of Andor and maybe Kenobi, or maybe Kenobi might just be standalone, which if that's the case, that's fine too. But something tells me that Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and the Andor series are leading towards a bigger conflict, which we might see played out in a feature-length film and everything. So, and I'll bring up I Love Foods comment.
That could be possible.
Yeah. Next episode, Boba will learn to ride the Rancor. Last episode battle. Maybe, or it could potentially be a 2-part battle. Wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. So
Boba Fett is going to straight up like attack them.
Yeah, because essentially, if you remember, Zach, Boba said, "Okay, fine. If you guys aren't going to fight, then I'll do it myself." And he just asked that the crime bosses stay out of the way. If the Axis approach him to betray him, that they won't they won't engage, and they've all said, "Yeah, we'll
Which,
stay out of it."
in terms of live action Star Wars, that might be a first of one of our main heroes attacking without being attacked first.
Well,
Yeah,
the
go ahead,
Pikes
Josh.
are trespassing on his territory.
Yes, that is true. But also, the thing you have to remember about Boba Fett, he is first and foremost, he's a warrior. So he's going to be very proactive in his approach rather than reactive.
Yeah.
I have a feeling some of his time with the Tusken Raiders is going to play a part in terms of how he wages war against the Pikes. Um, obviously, we're going to see Black Chrysanthemum. We're obviously going to be seeing Mando. And I would imagine they'll probably some of this will happen off screen. Obviously, that's off screen. That's honestly okay with me. We'll see more recruitment. See more recruits come in. Obviously, we've got the mods. The biker gang. They'll have a part to play in the war as well. So we'll just have to wait and see what all transpires. But I imagine these last 2 episodes, they're gonna be pretty damn good. So
Yeah.
Josh, no. Han, no. This is canon. This right here is canon. Han shot first. End of discussion. So, Zach, I know you got to head off.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
about unprovoked, Han did shoot Greedo. That is true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, Zach, I know you got to go. So I'm gonna let you have the floor for a few minutes. Give your final thoughts before you have to run. So, the floor is yours.
Well, I won't take a few minutes. I'll just say
okay.
That a good episode, man. It's just kind of odd that they brought Mando in like this. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Really good episode, but they've kind of got to, reinforce the Boba Fett character, I think, quite strongly if they want to keep going with the show. Like I was telling you guys, it all comes down to how they end it. I mean, as enjoyable as the show has been, and it has been, it's kind of a mess, like structure-wise, plot-wise. So hopefully they can kind of wrap it up for us and kind of tie a bow on it here at the end.
Yeah. I imagine the last couple episodes are gonna be pretty close to an hour long.
Yeah, well this one was. I would like something kind of like a Game of Thrones battle episode, where it's pretty battle heavy, and you've got kind of some pretense to it. Maybe Boba Fett meets with the Pikes first and kind of says, "Hey, I'm just letting you know, I'm here. I'm not fucking around," kind of thing. I'm offering you a chance to leave, right? Maybe some planning out and stuff like that would be fun, and then bam, hit us with a badass, battle sequence.
Well, yeah. I could potentially see them doing that, because here's the thing: the directors, I think, for the last 2 episodes are either it's going to be in one of 2 orders. It's going to be Favreau, or Filoni and Favreau. One of those. Yeah. It's going to be that one of those. It's going to be one of those 2 ways.
Those are the guys. Those are the guys right there.
They know
right
their
now.
stuff. Yep.
So, all right. Well, good to see you, man. Josh, take care. Thanks
have
for
a
having
good
me,
one.
man.
Zach, you have a good night, bud. Appreciate you coming by.
Take care, guys.
You too.
You have a good one. All right.
Yeah.
My brain just shut down. 2 points I do want to make. I do like that they kind of called back during the N1 sequence, how they kind of called back to Din's no droids thing. I wonder if he's gonna do something with the foregone droid port.
He might. If you noticed, Pella, she's like, I just basically modded it out for you because I figured you didn't want to really have to deal with an astromech droid.
Mm-hmm.
And and this episode also does reinforce the fact that he has kind of gotten over his prejudice against droids.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reinforces that point from season 1 and everything, the finale, when you see IG-11 sacrifice himself, and he's doing everything he can to try and figure out a way for IG-11 to live. And here he's actually working with droids, and he's doing
Mm-hmm.
so peaceably.
Do not
Also,
self-destruct.
yeah. Also, I like to call back to Jedi Fallen Order with the little BD droid. I love.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it's not the same model. It's not the same BD droid because they're obviously they're mass produced. But still,
Mm-hmm.
I did like that little callback that Pella has expanded her droid workforce, and she's got a BD droid. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. It
BD
just it
droids
gave
are
me.
adorable.
They are, and they're very useful. Because if you notice, the BD droid actually used its holographic projector to show him where the one part goes, and he's like, "Thanks,
Mm-hmm.
little guy." And he's very his disposition towards droids has obviously very much changed since season 1 of Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And honestly, as I was saying before, with that whole sequence, I could imagine my father-in-law, who himself is a mechanic, watching this with me, and he'd be like, "This is cool," because
Mm-hmm.
he's a mechanic first and foremost. He does love he does like Star Wars. He's more of a Star Trek guy, which I still love him for it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it really roots the universe in some degree of believability and reality because it shows that there is a physicality to the world,
Mm-hmm.
that stuff is put together by hand, that it takes time and effort and work to build a ship like this. And
Yes.
like I mentioned before, if you watch videos of people building street rods and so on, and they're even that
Mm-hmm.
one engine part that you see sticking out of in front of the cockpit, it looks like a heavily modified street rod engine and
Yeah.
everything, like on a classic car, like on a street rod.
And it
But in
even
this
sounds like
case,
one.
it does. And I honestly, I think for Din, it also shows that he does have some mechanical aptitude because he is able
Mm-hmm.
to work on the ship himself. And I don't know if you noticed this, Josh. This is a very small Easter egg, and it might be something that you may not miss. And the chat and everything, this might, for those of you that watched it, the part that the Jawas bring him, that rod and everything, that coolant rod,
Uh-huh.
it is the same. It looks like the same prop that that Han, Luke, and Leia use in the trash compactor on the first Death Star.
Huh. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it was just a little Easter egg, just a little wink and a nod thing, but it was the same prop.
All right. Have a good
Ace, you
evening,
too.
Ace.
Ace, you too, bud. Good to see you, man, and appreciate you tuning in tonight. And
Mm-hmm.
may the force be with you. Or,
Yeah.
as we say in the little nerdier circles, may the Schwartz be with you.
Yeah. And
So, yeah, go ahead, Josh.
so what was I gonna say? Uh I wasn't quite gonna get onto my second point yet, but I can't remember
Well,
what I
I've
was
got a
saying.
couple. Um, I'll
Oh,
bring
I
this
do
up.
like the little attention to detail where
Mhm.
the lady is actually, practicing, like she's being safe and, like, wearing the welding mask and the
Oh,
proper gear.
the welding mask. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, like I said, it gives some believability. It gives a sense of reality, and like I said, physicality to the universe that we really haven't gotten before, because
Yeah.
we've never really seen a ship, even though it's heavily modified, seen a ship being constructed in the Star Wars universe. And even though this is a ship from the Star Wars universe past, it's a stripped down body of a N1 starfighter from Naboo.
Mm-hmm.
It really gives that sense of realism to the world. And I love that. I love that aspect. And again, it's a nice little wink and nod to the big guy, to George Lucas, who is a massive car enthusiast. And I will say this: that whole flight sequence with Din in the N1, I'm gonna go ahead and call it what it is: the Razor Blade Mark II, Mark One. So, I even got some vibes of Tony Stark's first flight in the Iron Man armor from Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie. I got just a little bit of a got a little bit of a vibe from that particular aspect of
Jarvis,
that movie. When
sometimes you've got to run before you can walk.
You can walk. Indeed. And he's like when he's calling out, or when he's talking to Pella, and he's like she handles differently, and she's like, yeah, you're used to flying a gunship, not a starfighter. Treat her like a starfighter. And he's like, okay. And he adapts his flying technique, and he does better. And I get when he went down Baker's Canyon, or when she says you'll when you reach Baker's Canyon, and she's like, I couldn't help but recall that line from A New Hope when Luke says to the other pilot, it's like it will be just like Baker's Canyon back home. Yeah, it totally is. So, and I'll bring up I Love Food's comment here. I really like that the armorer believes wholeheartedly that the reason Mandalore was destroyed was because the people on the planet lost their way, and that they survived because they kept the ways. And I Love Food. That's that's an interesting thing, and I couldn't help. Now, this is just a theory, and I know I've been doing a lot of theorizing lately, but I tried to base my theories in some sort of logic rather than just going off on a wild tangent. If you remember what she says to Din when she's talking about the history of the Darksaber, and she mentions that the Mythosaur will lead their people into a new era. Do you recall what the design on one of Boba Fett's shoulder guards is?
It's a mythosaur.
Exactly. So I'm just wondering. Oh no, I Love Food. You're good, dude. Your comment actually led into a point that I wanted to discuss. So, dude, you're perfectly fine. No worries. So, the interesting thing is that little piece of dialogue going to play into Din trying to convince Boba to come with him and help in the retaking of Mandalore? Because he's going to he may potentially he'll see that design on his shoulder guard and say, that looks like a mythosaur skull. Could he potentially be the mythosaur? And now here's the other big thing too. For those of us that are old enough to remember, and those that maybe just seen clips of it, what's the creature that we see Boba Fett ride the first time he ever appears on screen in the Star Wars Holiday Special?
A mythosaur.
Exactly. So,
but
the question, and it may be completely and utterly meaningless. Boba may just end up staying on Tatooine and doing his own thing. You know what? That's fine. But it's just, like I said, it's a theory. So,
but I wonder, I haven't really noticed, is the mythosaur even still on his armor since he repainted it?
Yep. That design is still on his shoulder, or anything on his shoulder guard. So, and shout out to the chat, a good friend of the channel. Good to see you, CJH. Hope you're having a good
Anyways,
night. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
the other point I wanted to make is, though Boba's own tribe was wiped out by the Nikto swoop gang that Boba wiped out in turn, I wonder, with the Pike showing up, will we see the other tribes of Tusken Raiders fighting back against the
Against the Pikes.
invading Pikes in the Dune Seas?
I honestly don't know. Potentially, it's a possibility. But here's the thing: is Boba was able to build a relationship with that one particular tribe of Tuscans. The other tribes may not be as accepting of him. Even if he says, "Hey, I was accepted into this tribe. They regarded me as a kinsman, as a member of the tribe." And you have these interlopers, as he calls them, coming into your backyard. Will you fight with me? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, I'm not saying like fighting with Boba. I'm saying like fighting as their own separate faction against the Pikes.
they could potentially be. We may just not ever see it on screen. It's a possibility. So, the thing is, though, how effective are they going to be? I mean, yeah, the Tuscans, they're not to be trifled with by any stretch. But here's the thing: if they can be taken out by a squad or two of stormtroopers, which are very well trained, and you consider the forces that the Pikes have at their disposal, just how effective are they going to be against them? I'm not saying it isn't a possibility; it could very well be, but the question is, how effective are they going to be?
I feel like it would be badass to see a sequence of like kind of like a real world battle where it's the Pikes on one side marching in and then the Tuscans on the other just running in and wreaking havoc.
Yeah, I don't think that's I don't foresee that being the the layout for how a fight in Star Wars would take place. That's something more akin to like Lord of the Rings or a more historical drama taking place in the Middle Ages or something, not necessarily Star Wars. I love food.
I mean, we did see something kind of like that in the Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, but that was slightly different. So, actually, I love food. I'm pretty sure I saw. I could be wrong, but I think the body of the war chief, the female war chief, was amongst the rest of them. So I don't know if she survived or not. I think I imagine she's probably died with the rest of the tribe. So at least that's my that's my guess. So
We'll have to find out.
Just got a few days to wait. Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
now, what I would like to see is.
Mm-hmm. Josh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
You're good. Gotcha. Okay. Go ahead.
What I'm wondering is what they're gonna do with episode 6, and what I kind of want to see is like maybe 45 to 50 minutes in episode 6, and then maybe an hour or more in episode 7 for the finale. Hello?
Yeah, sorry. I thought you were gonna go for a little bit longer. I was just grabbing me something to
Oh.
drink. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's just that. I wouldn't mind that. I mean, if they go about as long as they've been going with the other episodes, particularly this one, if they go almost an hour, I think that'd be good. Oh, excuse me. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of the story that they're trying to tell, how big the story is going to be, and what all they're going to have to put into it. I do agree with Zach.
Mhm.
They're really going to have to stick the landing with these last two
Yes.
episodes because I will agree. I do understand a lot of people's criticism about how this series so far has been kind of all over the place. Now, as I
Mhm.
said, I think they're telling a more non-linear story, but now they're bringing it into focus, being it more linear, more straightforward, and everything. And that being kind of a little bit of Tarantino's influence indirectly. I'm not saying that he's been involved, but just the fact that you've
Uh-huh.
got Robert Rodriguez, who's been working on the series, and him and Quentin Tarantino are good friends. They've worked together in the
Yep.
past on various projects and everything. So, but yeah, I think, yeah, Favreau and Filoni have not given me any reason to doubt their abilities as storytellers,
No.
regardless of what some other corners of the internet want to say. I have enjoyed the live action series and the animated series that have come out
Mhm.
from Lucasfilm in the last several years.
Yeah.
And I think this has been several steps in the right direction to kind of bring the Star Wars fan base back around. And
Yep.
speaking as someone who is as ardent and as vocal a detractor of the sequel films as I was, now I will say this: I thoroughly loved Rogue One, and
Uh-huh.
probably in the next month or so, I'm probably going to do a sit down. I'm going to watch Solo and probably do a review on it because
Mhm.
I do want to give it a chance because I've never really had an opportunity to sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
But honestly, I have been and always will be a fan of Star Wars, and I'm willing to give it a second chance so long as the narratives that the stories that they tell are good and the characters are well crafted.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've taken a very well loved and well known character like Boba Fett, but we know next to nothing about him,
Uh-huh.
and they've woven a story around him the way they have. I think they've done a good job. But again,
They
it's going to
have.
come down to the well, here's the thing. You've got 40 some odd years of theorizing and of EU lore to dig into, and you've got people who want to bring their own perspective and their own style to this character that we've all loved as Star Wars fans for decades upon end. I'll say it, and the Mandalorian says it best. This is the way.
Mhm.
This is the way.
Yeah. I
Live
feel like
action streaming. Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead. I've said
you
my
you
piece. Go ahead.
mentioned a potential film coming out of this. I kind of can see like once all these shows that they've announced and are still going through with, like I'm pretty sure they canceled the
Rangers.
yeah, Rangers of the New Republic because
Yeah, the whole
The
thing with
whole
what's her
Gina
face. Yeah, I
Carano
know.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But with the shows that they're still planning and still doing, I can imagine like those are all going to be somewhat interconnected and they're going to probably lead into some big
Grand,
cinematic movie
big,
event.
a bigger film. Well, here's the
Uh-huh.
thing. What's the name that was dropped in the episode The Jedi in season 2 of Mandalorian?
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Thrawn. My guess is he's going to be the big bad going forward, and I'm cool with that. I mean, look at my
I
avatar.
fully agree. I
I
fully
love
agree.
this character. Look at my avatar for Pete's sake.
Uh-huh. The Admiral himself.
I mean, I have both the Black Series and the original EU figure of Grand Admiral Thrawn. That's how much I love that character.
Oh yeah,
So,
I love Thrawn too. Thrawn is
Yeah.
my number one favorite Star Wars character. So,
well, I've been a fan of him ever since I read the first or the original Thrawn trilogy that came out in the mid '90s. I have the whole shoot match, all three novels, first editions.
mhm,
It's kind of a very. I take pride in the fact that I have first editions of those books. I have very few first editions, but those are ones that I have.
I have the Thrawn, Treason, and the other book, and I've been reading through them. Thrawn has an interesting story.
He does. He very
And
much does. Hey, I watched his arc in Rebels, and for the most part, I was happy.
mhm,
I think they caught at least a portion of his personality and his mentality very well.
mhm. And they definitely did catch his tactical genius.
They did, yes, because knowing the character as well as I do, and I do because I've researched him, I've read up on him, and everything else that they've done over the years with him. They did a good job. Was it perfect? No. Was it good? Yes. I will say it was very good. So, but honestly, going forward for a few years there, Lucasfilm lost me as a fan in terms of Star Wars. Now, I will always be a fan of Star Wars, but in terms of what they were doing, they lost me.
Yeah, the sequel
But
trilogy.
with everything that they have done thus far, and there's no sense rattling it off again because we know what they've done in the last several years. They have regained my confidence. They've regained my trust, and
Yes.
I will give them a chance to tell the stories that they want to tell, so long as they're good.
Now, I wonder. I've been kind of theorizing this since they announced it. I wonder if Ahsoka is going the Ahsoka show. I wonder if that's going to focus around her search for Thrawn and Ezra.
That is, I think is the general consensus, Josh. Honestly, I think that's where they're going to go. I think that's the direction they're going to go with Ahsoka's series. You may even see some fill in from her time once we see her and Rex part ways. I mean, we do see her obviously in Rebels, very obviously, and everything. So we might get a few flashbacks here and there to that time period of her life as well. But yeah, I would say more than likely, considering the cast that they're putting around her, with the fact that you've got Sabine in this series as well. Yeah, this is probably going to be her going searching for Ezra and going searching for Thrawn, most definitely. So, and I think that'd be a really cool story. Josh, you're muted again, buddy.
With our theory that Thrawn is going to be the big bad going forward,
Yeah,
a part of me wonders if we're gonna see some of the old EU continuity, like some of the protocols of finishing off the Empire and stuff like that. Like
potentially.
you
I
got
mean,
in
we
the
Battlefront 2. Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, there have been people who have said that they're essentially building towards Heir to the Empire, more or less, or a version of Heir to the Empire. And okay, fine, go tell that story. Whoever way you want to tell it, that's fine with me. Just do it right. Oh, and Fook Norris. Hey, Fook. If only Dawson dressed like, I think he's referring to Rosario Dawson, dressed like her
Yeah, I
in
know
the
that, but
Clone Wars. So,
I
um,
don't get the.
I get what he's saying. I get what Fook is saying. So, and Fook, good to see you, bud. Appreciate you popping into this evening. So, um,
One thing
but yeah,
I
go ahead, Josh.
One thing I didn't really like, but could kind of understand the necessity of it, was that they took the Montrals and shortened them back down in the live action costume.
Yeah, I didn't really have a big issue with that because you have to think about practicality for this.
Yeah.
Because you can't do the same things in live action that you can do in animation.
Yeah.
And her trying to move and fight and just everything wouldn't have been practical for it to have
Hmm.
those long
Yeah. That's
modules, as you said.
that's what I was kind of hinting to when I said I can understand the necessity, because you got to
Oh
be
yeah,
practical. But a
yeah.
lot of people did get kind of offended by
Bent
that
out
for
of
some
shape.
reason. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying, Fook.
Oh God.
Oh lordy. So anyway,
But I do
well,
like the
folks.
new
Go
costume
ahead.
they gave her in Mando.
Oh, I did too. I very much did. Yeah. Um, it was reminiscent of what we had seen her in Rebels, but she obviously had modified it over the years and everything. So
Uh,
now, one thing I would love to see in the Ahsoka series is her crafting her white bladed lightsabers. That would be something I would love to see. Even if
yeah.
it's done as a flashback, I don't care. I would love to
Uh-huh.
see how she constructed those, considering that she got rid of, I think, well,
Hmm.
she got rid of one of her lightsabers, but she didn't get rid of both of her lightsabers. So, because if you remember at the end of Clone Wars season 7, she leaves one of her lightsabers behind to kind of throw
Throw Vader off her
Vader off.
trail.
Yeah. So, but
But
I'll say this: the future for Star Wars going forward, it's looking pretty bright, and
it's
I'm very
looking bright.
happy. Yeah. So
There
anyway,
is always a light at the end of the tunnel.
that is true. So, well, folks, anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here for the evening. But I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight, and I want to thank my panel, Josh, and of course, Mr. Larry, Mr. Zach Larry. Uh, Great discussion. Really appreciate y'all's input and everything. And of course, if you catch us on the replay, leave your thoughts down below with anything that we might have missed, any points that you want to touch upon yourselves. And as always, make sure you give the video a like. It obviously helps with getting it out there to the broader YouTube algorithm. And as always, if you're enjoying what I'm doing here on the Ambassadorial Wing, or you come across this video and you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and become a part of this community, because there's always room for another ambassador in the Ambassadorial Wing. So I do want to remind y'all, I'll be back tomorrow night with my good friend Brian Hill, Master of None, as we continue our sci-fi review of the Star Trek New Trek films. And tomorrow night we'll be doing Star Trek Into Darkness, and that'll be at 8 p.m. Central Time. So make sure you hit your notifications on that one, because it is already up. So, and I'll be sending out some notifications on social media and everything as to what I've got going on going forward over the next couple of weeks and everything here on the channel. So be sure to keep an eye out for those.
Yes.
And as always, thank you all for being here tonight. Greatly appreciate it. And
Have a wonderful
as
rest of your weekend, everybody.
yeah, and as our good friends, the Mandalorians, like to say,
This
this
is
is
the
the way.
way.
Good night, everybody.